Appalachian Mountains have some of the creepiest stories and unexplained mysteries you'll ever hear. But the ones that stick with you the longest are the ones that come from people who lived them. And the story I'm about to tell you guys comes straight from the mouth of my mama, Birdie Mae White. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I lived with her up Printer Holler. During the day, it was just me and her, while my two older cousins were at school. And with there only being a few channels on the TV, we didn't have much to do. So we did a lot of talking. And when I say talking, she didn't treat me like a kid. She talked to me like I was grown, telling me stories about the Bible, some of the struggles of her childhood, and even some of the tragedies that happened within our own family. And one day, she pulls out this box. At first, I thought it was a jewelry box until she pulled out a stack of old photos that came from a disposable camera. As she's flipping through them, she's handing me pictures and telling me the names of the people in them and the stories behind them, because most of these people had passed away before I was even born. She got to this one picture and everything changed. She stopped, she hesitated, and instead of handing me the picture like she did the rest of them, she tried to just casually sneak it to the back of the stack. Before she got to the next photo, me being the curious little kid that I was, I said, "Ma, what's that picture of?" She paused for a minute, and then, without really saying a word, she pulled it from the back of the stack and handed it to me. I grabbed the picture and I looked at it, and I thought I knew why she didn't want me to see it. It was a picture of a funeral. After looking at the photo for a few seconds, I handed it back and I tried to act mature, and I said, "It's okay, I'm not scared of stuff like this. I know why you didn't want me to see the picture. Because it's a picture of you, and you were at a funeral." And what she said next, I will never forget. She looked at me and said, "But that's the thing. I wasn't." What do you mean? Because what do you mean you weren't there? You're in the picture. If you want part 2, comment. This video is getting long.
There is an entire side of the wizarding world that has never made it onto screen, and when you find out what it is, you'll be devastated that it was never filmed. In Chamber of Secrets, Nearly Headless Nick invites Harry to his 500th death day party. Not a birthday, a death day. It's the anniversary of the day he died. And Harry, Ron and Hermione actually go. It's on Halloween and they go there rather than to the Halloween feast. Whilst in the Great Hall there's this glorious feast going on. It's all cozy and lovely and happy. Harry, Ron and Hermione are in the dungeons, surrounded by hundreds of ghosts celebrating death. And the food is like rotten because the ghosts can then almost taste it. It's actually like a really interesting thing that's explored in the books, the fact that obviously ghosts can't eat or drink anything, but if they're around like rotten food, because it's a lot more pungent, so they are slightly able to smell and feel like they can taste it then because it's that off. The music is like fingernails on a chalkboard. It's freezing cold there. And there's ghosts from like every era drifting around there. Moaning Myrtle even shows up as well. And then the Headless Hunt show up. We never meet the Headless Hunt in the film. We do in the books. There's a group of ghosts that can fully remove their heads, and basically Nearly Headless Nick wants to join them, but he's not allowed because his head is still slightly attached. The reason why Nearly Headless Nick invites Harry is so that he could try and impress the Headless Hunt to try and get it. So it actually means the Hogwarts ghosts, and especially Nearly Headless Nick, actually have like more storyline. There's more to them. We learn more about them. Through all of this, we see an entire other side of the wizarding world. We see a ghost society and how they have their own politics, insecurity, social hierarchy. It builds the wizarding world even more and adds layers to Hogwarts as well that go back centuries. It's always the questions about how does someone choose to come back as a ghost at Hogwarts? Why do they come back as a ghost? And what do they do? Do they just float around? And this gives us a bit of an insight into that, and actually how, when these wizards and witches have died and become ghosts, they're sort of continuing to live in a way, but in a very different way. And I really hope the HBO series include this, because I think it's such an imaginative, creative scene and builds out the wizarding world even more. What's a scene that was missed from the films that you hope to see in the series?
I grew up in a haunted house. Growing up, I thought every kid smudged their house and put salt on the windows and doorways. So when I went to a middle school in a new town and everyone started calling me a witch for burning sage and believing in ghosts, you can say that I was confused. Besides the common hearing voices, seeing things move, seeing black floating orbs, One night I encountered something really strange. Our hallway was long, and my bedroom was at one end, and my parents' was at the other, and my bathroom was at about the midway point of that hallway. One night when I was around 5 years old, I went to go to the bathroom, and I left the door open because your girl was not shy, and when my mom came into the doorway, I just said hi. But it wasn't my mom. It was her silhouette, her shape, right? But it wasn't her. She was full of TV static. So I waited a minute, just staring at her, and then I said, Mom? She disappeared. She was gone. I finished my business, I washed my hands, and I went into my parents' room. My mom was asleep. I woke her up to ask if she had gone to my bathroom, and of course, she woke up confused and was like, what? So for a while, it felt boring to write about ghosts. I mean, I grew up in a haunted house. Why would I want to write about one? The concept was boring to me until I decided to challenge myself. I've been writing splatterpunk essentially my entire career as a horror author. To this pus-filled bloody mess that I started writing when I was 14, to this ramen and sweat-soaked monstrosity that I self-published when I was 22, I've been focused on the grotesque for a long time. Now that I'm a mature 25, I want to write something that's less gross. The Funeral Chicken is for all my readers who couldn't choke down mukbang. It's for all my readers who struggle with body image. It's for all my readers who know what it's like to be haunted by something that's not supernatural. I've spent 2 years writing this one because it's fought me tooth and nail. Around every corner with this one, I was discovering something new about myself. And I hope that when you read this one, you'll see the vision beyond the haunted house and beyond the ghosts and demons and beyond the time travel. It'll be out sometime in August with a new cover, and I really look forward to you reading it. It means a lot.
It's currently thunderstorming right now, which is giving today the perfect spooky vibe, so I thought what a better time than to read a story that one of you DM'd me. Today's spooky story comes to us from TikTok user Wayna. Okay, let's go! When I was younger, my aunt would frequently babysit me because I was raised by a single mother that was at work a lot. My aunt also happened to own a really popular hair salon that had a very strict no kids policy. She didn't even allow her own children in the salon. One day my aunt was babysitting me and I had no choice but to go with her to the salon. I was there for a few hours and there wasn't much for me to do, so I went to the very back of the salon where absolutely nobody was allowed. When I entered, I saw a young girl. She looked a little bit older than me. I was around 6 years old, and she asked if I wanted to play games with her. I didn't think anything about her being back there and just said yes. I played with her for a while before she said she had to use the bathroom. In the back of the salon where we were, there was a really small bathroom that had one window and also had metal bars covering it since the salon was on the 5th floor of a shared building. I literally watched as she ran into the bathroom and closed the door behind her. I sat in the same spot the entire time waiting for her to come out. She was in there for a long while before I went and knocked on the door. She didn't answer. Eventually, I opened the door and realized that there was nobody in there. I went to my aunt and asked her where that little girl went, and my aunt had a very confused look on her face. Then she told me, there was never a little girl in my shop. I never had any imaginary friends as a kid because I just wasn't into that type of stuff. Years went by and I never forgot about that story. This morning I saw one of your videos and I got the idea to research the past history of that shop and found out that it was a multi-family home during World War I. It sounds like maybe that little girl might have been the daughter of one of those families who lived there. Either way, she seemed really nice, and maybe she just wanted someone to play with. As always, I love these stories, and thank you, Wayna, for letting me share your story. If there's any stories that you would like me to share, my DMs are open. Okay, bye!
My grandmother had been gone for 3 months until I heard her say 3 words that saved my life. When I was 9, my grandmother died after a long battle with cancer. We were incredibly close, and losing her shattered me. A few months later, I was homesick from school and riding in the front seat with my mom while my baby brother and sister were in the back. It was cold, so I had a ski mask on, but I took it off because the car was warm. Then I heard a voice in my head, "Put your hat on." I ignored it. A few minutes later, louder, "Put your hat on." I ignored it again. Then I heard it a third time, loud and clear, and I instantly recognized it. "Donald, put your hat on now." It was my grandmother's voice. I finally listened. About 15 minutes later, another car made an illegal left turn in front of us. My mom slammed on the brakes, but we hit it head on. I remember pain, then everything went black. When I came to, paramedics were saying how lucky I was. That's when they removed my ski mask. It was covered in shattered windshield glass. My head had gone straight through the windshield, but somehow I didn't have a single cut. And standing beside the car, I saw my grandmother. "It's not your time yet," she said with a smile. "I'm glad you finally listened to me." To this day, my family still believes Grandma saved my life that day.
But like, genuinely, where did these stories come from? Because I know they didn't come from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and if they did, call me out.
Actually, I do think a lot of these urban legends come from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, or at least that's how I experienced them anyway. And one of the urban legends from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that always stuck with me was the drum, otherwise known as the new mother. So the story is pretty simple. It's about this family, minus the dad, who's like a sailor, always out at sea, etc. So back at home on the marsh or the farmland or whatever, they live somewhere kind of near the woods. It's a mom, a baby brother, like a baby infant, a boy, and then these two little girls who I guess are like toddlers, maybe 4 or 5 years old, 5, 6 years old, something like that. They're kind of young. And basically that's the household. And these two girls one day, they go traveling out to the moor or the marsh or whatever, the woods, somewhere outside. And while they're exploring out there, they stumble across this like gypsy girl, and she's by herself. And she's like playing with this like toy drum that she has. And as she's playing with it, these like two little mechanical like toy soldier and like princess or something like emerge from the drum and start like playing and interacting with each other. It's very magical. These two little girls have never seen a toy like this, and they're mesmerized and they want it. They want the drum that the gypsy girl has. So they ask her, they say, hey, can we have the drum? And the gypsy girl says, yeah, sure, you can have the drum, but first I need you to be really naughty. I need you to go home and be very naughty with your mother. Then come back and report back to me and tell me what you did, and I will judge whether it's naughty enough to give you this drum. So the two little girls go back home and they start fucking shit up. They start like tearing their clothes. They start breaking china and plates and cups and stuff and just hitting the dog and hitting the baby, like acting like complete and utter like demons basically. And this obviously causes a lot of stress for the mother, who is like sad and crying and like begging them to stop, but the girls won't stop. And long story short, the girls go back to the gypsy girl 2 more times. And each time they're like, yeah, we were really naughty. And the gypsy girl's like, tell me what you did. And they tell her what they did and how bad they were. And each time they go back, the gypsy girl's like, that's not good enough. You got to go back and be naughtier. So they go back to the house like 2 different times after that first time. And they're like doing even worse shit. And at some point in all the chaos, the mother pleads with them to stop and to behave. And she warns them, if you don't stop misbehaving, I am going to leave with your brother, and you are going to have a new mother who has glass eyes and a wooden tail. And this frightens the little girls, but they're so dead set on getting that drum, they kind of make a little pact between each other. Like, look, we'll keep being bad for just a little bit longer, and then we'll finally have the drum, and then we'll behave again, and everything will be back to normal. And so basically, they go back to the gypsy girl for the final last time, and they tell her everything they did from the previous time. But this time, the gypsy girl doesn't have the drum anymore. She's just by herself. And now she's like laughing at the little girls and like mocking them and saying, haha, I got you to misbehave. Now your mother has left you. And when you go home, you're going to have a new mother. And the 2 little girls are kind of freaked out. They're like, uh-oh. And they don't know what's going on. The gypsy girl's like some witch or something. We don't know what's going on. So they leave. They go back home. And this time, their mother is gone. The baby's gone. The house is empty. And they're like, oh, what's going on? So they try cleaning up and making things presentable. And they're like, oh, she's probably just out running errands. She'll be back. But time goes on, and the mom and the baby brother don't come back. And the little girls start to get scared. So the little girls go out to the marsh or the moor again, looking for their mother. And they can't find her. It's starting to get dark. They're like, okay, like, let's go back home. We don't know what's going on. We'll just keep waiting for her at the house. And when they get back to the house, they see that all the lights are now off, but there's a fire going in the living room. And they're like, what the hell's going on? They go to the window, they peer inside, and there, sitting in the rocking chair by the fire, is this woman with glass eyes and a wooden tail. She's just rocking back and forth, waiting for them to enter. And that's pretty much the end of the story, or at least the version that I read in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Obviously, the mother ended up following through with her like warning, and she left, and now they got this like evil cat lady or something in the house who will presumably spank them with her wooden tail. And yeah, that story always stuck with me and reminded me as a kid, like, hey, behave, be good, and don't listen to gypsy children you come across in the woods, even if their drum is super cool. You can go get another drum, it's fine.
Welcome to the Midnight Sesh. We have inhaled some Cat 4. Now let's get into the story. I had a negative attachment that came to me through a friend who had lived with me since childhood, and it stayed with me for about 3 years before leaving with my friend again after we reconnected. The entity made it clear that it was male and that its name started with a T, but it would not say anything more specific. I would never get a straight answer from it through a spirit box or by channeling. Since I have some weaker empathetic medium-like abilities, I can sense energy and sometimes get brief flashes of relevant imagery that do not feel like my own thoughts. I tried to banish it, cleanse my home, but none of it worked. The boundaries actually seemed to make it worse. It also affected my emotions. It made me horribly depressed, and that was one of the hardest parts of dealing with it day to day. The reason I'm sharing it is that I'm trying to figure out what it actually was. I'm almost completely certain it was a demon, but I'm curious whether someone might be able to identify which kind. I looked into it myself, but most of what I found pointed to something like a parasitic attachment or energy vampire, and neither of these descriptions match what I experience. Whoa, first of all, I think you just gotta be careful who you choose to be friends with, because clearly some people be hanging around some shit and it might stick with you. So continue setting your boundaries, please. Let me know your thoughts down below. Go ahead and like, follow, comment, and share. I love you as always. Bye.
Did you know that this seaside amusement park is haunted? I'm talking about Belmont Park at Mission Beach. Welcome to Haunted US, where we are exploring the ghosts, mysteries, and cryptids of every state. Today, we are in California, in San Diego. A lot of San Diego seems to be haunted, so make sure to check out the other videos. And keep listening if you are ready for the haunted history of this amusement park. Opened in 1920 as Mission Beach Amusement Park. It included a dance hall, bathhouse, arcade, and the famous Giant Dipper roller coaster. Over time, with renovations, some of these areas were actually sealed off, such as service corridors and maintenance spaces, which became abandoned. And some of the new portions of the park overlay the old. Three deaths have been recorded at Belmont Park. First being in 1926, when Joe Pays, age 19, was thrown off the Giant Dipper ride. He was trying to change seats and unfortunately met his demise. If we have learned anything, it is not to change seats on roller coasters. There's a very recent incident that people got extremely lucky. But if you watched my last videos about Disneyland, there are quite a few people who did not. In 1953, Martin Luther Huff, age 31, was shot during a domestic dispute in the parking lot. In 1955, Walter T. Barney, age 69, was the roller coaster operator for the Giant Dipper. He passed away from carbon dioxide poisoning during a fire inside the engine control room. Smoke blocked his exit. Unfortunately, he lost his life trapped. There is one that was not legally documented, but there is a very famous rumor about a sailor taking his own life at the park in the late 1950s. In 1950, the Giant Dipper roller coaster was actually almost demolished due to safety concerns, obviously, because of so many injuries. In 1960, it was sent into disrepair and closed in 1976, but it was saved thanks to the Save the Coaster community in 1978, resulting in the park being renovated, restored, and reopened. The coaster was reopened in 1990, and here we are 100 years later since the Seaside Amusement Park's opening day. Now, the hauntings associated with Belmont Park are reported by staff and guests. This include phantom footsteps, dark clouds, and disembodied screams. Could some of this be residual, or is there intelligent haunts at this park? The big hotspots for activity are located at the formal laser tag area, where there are EVPs and disembodied voices found. Now, the difference between EVP and a disembodied voice is EVPs are normally caught on a digital recorder. If you record asking questions, you play it back, and you may hear extra voices that were not there in the moment. Now, disembodied voices are when
we hear it with our own ears, and there is no one around who would be saying those words. Find shadows in the laser tag area as well. The merchandise and prize storage is also a hotspot of the park, where objects get moved around and people report hearing whispering. The roller coaster repair and maintenance room also is a big place for EVPs getting captured. The abandoned interior corridors are only accessible by makeshift ladders. Also experience a lot of activities, especially of recording EVPs. Have you been to Belmont Park, and have you ever felt any weird energy there or had a paranormal experience? I would love to hear below. And if you like videos like this, make sure to show your support by follow, sharing, and saving for later for more spooky videos.
I recently asked my viewers to send me their personal stories of hauntings or unexplainable phenomena they experienced. This is one of those stories. We lived at this house that had a small attic door leading to a crawl space, but it was in my bedroom. One of the times I was laying in bed, kind of late at night. I had just lied down, trying to fall asleep. I had a brand new kitten and an older cat with me in the room. I remember hearing my new kitten, that was up on my neck and shoulder, growling, and I just assumed she was growling at the older cat, who I thought I felt crawling onto the bottom of my bed. The growling got louder, and she started hissing. I got a little worried. And then, I heard another growl to the right of me on the bed. I distinctly remember feeling something crawling on the bed, so much so that I panicked and curled up onto the headboard. I very distinctly remember seeing glowing eyes. I got so scared that I jumped out of bed and flipped on my light to realize that there was only the two cats in the room. We had a third cat, and I thought it might have been her, but my door was in fact closed, and I even walked out into the hallway to make sure the other cat was in the other bedroom. She was. I have no idea what it was that I saw or what I felt, but whatever it was, my cats did not like it. Thank you so much to this viewer who chose to stay anonymous for sharing this experience. Animals, especially cats, have a long history connected to paranormal activity and are known to see things from the spiritual world. I'm sure this was very frightening to live and see. If you watching have your own haunting or inexplainable phenomena you'd like to share, please leave a comment below or send me a DM with your story.
Some houses become homes, and some are said to hold on to everyone who ever walked through their doors. Today's haunted destination takes us back to Mineral Wells, Texas. Just a short distance from the legendary Baker Hotel sits another location that's earned a chilling reputation of its own, the Haunted Hill House. Built in the late 1800s, this historic home has witnessed generations come and go. Over the years, it's been connected to several different chapters of Mineral Wells history. Some accounts say it served as a boarding house, while local legends claim it may have once operated as a brothel, frequented by guests from the nearby Baker Hotel. While parts of its history are well documented, other stories have become woven into the house's folklore. As the years passed, the stories surrounding the house grew darker. Today, Hill House has become one of the most well-known paranormal locations in Texas, drawing investigators from across the country in search of answers. But the history is only the beginning, because according to those who've stepped inside, the house may not be empty at all. Join me next time as we step inside reported hauntings of the Hill House. Tread carefully, traveler, because some doors remember everyone who's ever walked through.
So yep, love to talk about the Mimic. It has followed me around since as long as I can remember. If I had to put a date on when I first noticed that it exists, was probably late 80s, early 90s. So I was around 5 years old. We were living at my grandparents' house, and that was also a very, very haunted location that the whole family kind of knew about. It was also a hub for anybody that needed a place to stay. My grandma never turned anybody away, so cousins, her children, aunts, uncles, everybody just kind of moved in, moved out, almost like a boarding house. So how it started and progressed was around the age of 5. So we're talking about 89, 90. That's when I started hearing my name being called. And I would go run in the direction of the name, and I would find the person whose voice it belonged to, but they would tell me, oh, I didn't call you. You're just hearing things. Oh, that happens to me. It's fine. Just ignore it. Which I never got those stories. Like, I feel like there was a story to that. Like, you heard your name called and nothing was there, and then you just left it. I guess that's the older generation. But then it got to where I would go to look for the person that was calling me, and nobody would be there. It started to get louder and louder. So before it was like, I wonder, I think I heard my name, to where, oh no, I definitely heard my name. And I remember when it started screaming, my papa was getting older. Sorry, I heard somebody walk around my kitchen, everybody's asleep, and this is what happens. Every single time I start talking about my past, something shows back up. But it's fine, it's daylight, I'll get rid of it. Anyway, my papa was getting older, so I would help with little things around the house. And this day I was helping change a light bulb downstairs in the den. Had a little bit taller ceilings, I had to get up on a ladder to do so. So I get all the stuff I need, I'm getting up on the ladder, and I hear my grandma scream my name, just angry, like I had just done something terrible. So I was like very confused. I was like, I'll be right there, I'm changing the light bulb you asked me to change. And then I hear my papa scream my name. And so at that point I'm like, something's A, wrong, or 2, maybe I did something, I forgot I did it. So I get down from the ladder, go upstairs, and both my grandparents are just talking to each other, and I was like, hey, what's going on? I was changing the light bulb and y'all were screaming my name. And grandma looks at me and she does this little laugh and she's like, we didn't call you. I was like, it's not for me, I was on the ladder, I could have fell, trying to change this light bulb. And she's like, we did not call you. I promise we didn't call you. And it would continue like that. So I would go outside, I would hear my name, and I thought it was just to the property, but I was very wrong. Apologies, TikTok would not let me continue my first video, so here you go. So with the mimic, it's calling my name, constantly doing all this stuff, thousands upon thousands of same stuff I just talked about happening over the course of years. It progressed to where I moved into my first kind of house by myself. I had a roommate, but she was never there. And so I had basically this whole old, terribly haunted house to myself. Yay. There I had a demonic mimic. Say it 3 times fast. Probably not a good idea. But it would do this low, just raspy calling of my name, sometimes really close to my ear, and I hated it. I could talk more about that house. I have tons of stories from all the houses. Anyway, did not live there long, and when I moved, the mimic was just kind of normal as it was before. It wasn't the demonic sound. But then when I moved into my first townhouse with my husband, then fiance, that's when things started to get funny, because he was not a believer in the paranormal at all. He did not give it any type of second thought. And I still think this is funny because he is now a full-time believer in this stuff. And it started with, I was big and pregnant with our first, and I'm sitting on the bed and folding towels, and he's like, well, I'm gonna go take a shower. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna sit here and fold these towels. He goes and takes a shower, and he comes out, like, his shower wasn't even 5 minutes long, and he comes out and he's like, why are you yelling at me? Why are you not responding when I ask you what is your problem? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm trying to take a shower and you're screaming at me through the door. And I'm like, I have not gotten up. I'm sitting in the same spot that I've been sitting. I was like, I waddle when I walk. Like, I was big and pregnant. Like, I'm not getting up for nothing. I was like, and if I was sitting here yelling at you, you wouldn't be able to hear me. And he stood there for a second, and he waited, and he goes, it's one of that freaky ghost stuff, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, probably. And that happened a few other times with him. And what really got him to understand that it really wasn't me was it happened when I wasn't home. And he knew I wasn't home. So now here we are, years and years later, in our house, and it happens here. And it doesn't always happen here, because I'll go through and I will plead the blood of Jesus over my home, protection of my children and myself and my family, and it goes away for a very long time. And when I say a long time, in months to a year. But it has come back now, so I will be getting rid of it again. But my children notice it, especially my son. My son is a lot like myself. He's seen things since he was little, and I have done everything I can to protect him from all this, because I don't want him to have the childhood I did. I stayed scared a lot because there's a lot of things that I didn't understand, or how to get rid of them, or why they're there. So what I have done with my children is I would just say to them, you need to tell them to go away in Jesus' name, and it will go away every single time. And they do. I can hear them. If they get scared, they'll say it, and then they just feel better, and they go about their day, because it works. But I would love to start talking about the shadow men if y'all want to hear it.
Get your ass in here and sit down. Now, in this video, this guy was seen on security cam by his co-workers talking to somebody. He's shaking somebody's hand. Later on, he said that that person was asking for directions. He turned around to go in. He turned around again. The person's gone. He's confused. Like, what the fuck? Reminds me of a story. Listen to me. I was sitting on my porch one day. This was a few years ago. And I've told this story on TikTok before. And a lot of people did not believe me. I don't care. This gonna help somebody. I was sitting on my porch having a cigarette. My ex-husband was over. I forgot what he was doing because it's been years. And I was sitting on the porch smoking a cigarette. He walked across the street. Sorry, I got cut off. He walked across the street to talk to my neighbor's kid's dad or whatever. They work together. They standing in the yard talking. We're within eyeshot of each other. Literally across the street. This little lady walks by. First she walks by on the sidewalk. She walks back over and she asks me for a cigarette. I give her a cigarette. She lights the cigarette. I had to give her a light too. She lights the cigarette. We standing there talking for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And she was saying something about her husband and how he was cheating. And she was trying to catch him. I don't know. Either way, she's stalking the neighborhood, right? She's looking for him. And we sat there and we talked for a few minutes. Chopped shit up. We laughing, cackling like us elderly women do. And then she leaves. He walks back across the street. My ex-husband. He says to me, you done lost your damn mind? And I'm like, what the fuck you talking about? He said, you over here laughing at the damn air at the sky. And I was like, you didn't see that damn lady standing here talking to me? She was talking about her husband and shit like that. I don't remember the exact words that we said, but that's what it summed up to. He said, no. What the fuck you talking about? Wasn't nobody here? And that's when I knew that shit done got real around this motherfucker. Okay? You may not believe this shit, but this happens and it's fucking real. Jazz up out of here.
We are back with another Trini Paranormal Trini Scary Story. Trini Folklore for you today. And you know what yellow alert means? It means perfect water for a cup of coffee and a little scary story or paranormal experience to warm you up. Now, we have a story and it actually ends a little bit sad. But it's actually very scary. So let's get into it. So, our follower said, hi, I have a story for you. This happened by my grandmother's house when we were little. So we lived in Blanchisez, and that's in the North Coast. And my dad used to make coals for barbecue, for sale. So they would dig a huge pit, and they would burn the wood in that pit, and it would be lighted for a few days. Then we had to go out to out it. At the time, I was 9, and my sister was 15 years old. So she was way older than me, and every night at around 10, you would hear children playing and chains dragging around the house. Grandma would always tell us to not go outside and don't look out the window. But one night in particular, we were very curious, and my sister decided to say, let's go outside. It's what we saw was the most scariest thing in my life. It was a goat-like, wolf-like creature with long chains around it dragging. Since the sighting of the creature, my sister went clinically insane, and she's currently receiving treatment in a psychiatric facility in Trinidad and Tobago. A really tragic ending to that experience, but it is not something unheard of. There's a lot of people who, when they see things, it is so scary, it is so unreal that their brain, their spirituality, it can't process it, and it sends them mad, as we like to say it in Trinidad. I mean, very, very sad ending. But let me know, have you all ever seen a creature like that? Or have you ever heard about people seeing paranormal or supernatural things that eventually sent them insane?
I saw this video. This was someone's actual reality. I mean, imagine your son going missing in a short amount of time on his paper route. He never comes home, and then his wagon is found just 2 blocks away from his house, still filled with the newspapers that he was supposed to be delivering that morning. In a matter of moments, he's gone. And then just when all hope is lost, 14 years later, he shows back up on your front doorstep telling you some really horrific things that happened since his abduction. Then he disappears into the night once again. This is the disturbing disappearance of Johnny Gosch, which is still unsolved to this day. But since there is a slight chance that he could still be out there somewhere alive, let's talk about it. This is Johnny Gosch. He was only 12 years old when he mysteriously disappeared in 1982. He lived in Des Moines, Iowa with his mom Noreen and his dad John. Johnny was described as your typical innocent 12-year-old little boy who was a really hard worker. At the time of his disappearance, he was trying to save up for a brand new dirt bike. So being a hard worker, Johnny signed up to become a paperboy for the Des Moines Register. He had his usual route around his West Des Moines neighborhood, and he was really good at delivering the newspapers on time. He was a super reliable little kid. Normally, Johnny would wake his dad up before dawn and the two would begin delivering newspapers. It was a fun thing the two of them did together, and it was a really good bonding experience. But on the morning of September 5th, 1982, this would all change, and tragedy would strike the Gosch family. So just before dawn, Johnny woke up to start getting ready for his job. Like I said, his dad would usually come with, but that morning, for whatever reason, Johnny decided to let his dad sleep in. Instead, he left the house with only the family's pet dog, Gretchen, who was a miniature dachshund. Just before 6 that morning, other paper carriers saw Johnny and Gretchen at the paper drop picking up his stack of newspapers. At this point, all seems normal, but not long after, this is where things start to get really disturbing. So shortly after Johnny picked up his papers, another paperboy named Mike saw him talking to a stocky man in a blue two-toned car near the paper drop. Mike wasn't the only one who saw this either. So another paperboy named John Rossi also saw the man in the blue two-toned car talking to Johnny. He distinctly remembered this because he felt deep down in the pit of his stomach that something just felt really strange about it. Then Johnny comes up to the other paperboy, John, and tells him that the stocky man in the blue car said he was lost and asking for directions, which Johnny didn't know how to give. So he was hoping John may be able to step in and help. John did, and he even remembers, for whatever reason, looking directly at this man's license plate. But after this interaction, the man sped off. After this, Johnny was seen walking a block north where his paper route began, and he was seen by yet another paperboy who noticed something strange. As Johnny was walking with his dog in a wagon filled with newspapers, this other paperboy noticed that he was being followed by another man, not the one in the blue car. So now at this point, you have several witnesses who say they saw Johnny being scouted and followed by these unknown men. No one knew it at the time, but Johnny would disappear after this, and these sightings would go on to play a huge role in this case. So fast forward to later that morning. It's now well into the morning when Johnny should have been home home by now. But his parents wake up to something odd. They started receiving multiple calls from angry customers along Johnny's route, saying he never delivered their paper that morning. This was super confusing and really unlike Johnny. So this was an immediate red flag to his family. So they got up to start looking for him in the house, but he wasn't there. What they did find, though, sent chills down their spine. Literally shaking and trembling in their front yard was their pet dog Gretchen, who seemed traumatized. But Johnny wasn't with her, so they knew something horrible must have happened to him. Johnny's dad immediately began searching along his route, and just 2 blocks from the family's home, they found something incredibly disturbing. There, laying on the side of the street, was Johnny's wagon, still filled with the newspapers that he was supposed to be delivering that morning. This is when his family reported him missing, or I guess I should say, tried reporting him missing. Police took their sweet time arriving to the scene. It took them 45 minutes just to show up, and when they did, they completely dismissed his parents. They tried saying that Johnny was probably just a runaway, and that they couldn't even report him missing for 72 hours, which is not true, by the way. That's actually insane to me because he was a literal child, and his dog was shaking, which should be their first clue that something bad happened. Anyways, 3 days come and go, and by then, the police start to change their minds about the case. I mean, Johnny was still nowhere to be found, and when they finally started their investigation, things were really not looking good. All of the witnesses who saw Johnny the morning he disappeared came forward and gave their statements. They told them all about the stocky man in the blue 2-toned car, which police were able to create a composite sketch from. But for some reason, police refused to release this sketch to the public, even though this was an active investigation where time was of the essence. So again, this was another slap in the face to the Gosh family. This led the family to hire a PI to create their own sketches of this man, which were then released to the public. That's who you're seeing here. The other paperboy, John, told authorities in great detail how he talked to this man, and he even remembered looking at his license plate because he just felt like something was off. But sadly, at this point, he couldn't remember the license plate number. As the days went on and Johnny was still missing, this ate at the paperboy. He said he kept hoping that he would randomly wake up in the middle of the night and remember the license plate number. But he never did. He even underwent hypnosis to try and figure this out. But sadly, he only ever remembered a few numbers, and that the license plate was from Warren County. Then, another shocking discovery would be made. So one of Johnny's neighbors who was along his route reported hearing a car door slam the morning that Johnny disappeared. This startled him because it was super early, and there shouldn't be any reason for someone to be that loud. So he looked out of his window, and then he saw a silver Ford Fairmont speed away north. What's crazy is that this sighting took place at the exact same spot where Johnny's wagon was eventually found. So this was a huge lead, and all of this information was eventually released to the public. Despite many extensive searches, the owners of these 2 cars were never found. No one ever came forward, and if they were ever actually connected to Johnny's disappearance or not, we just don't know for sure. There were so many searches for Johnny, but besides his wagon that was left behind, it was like he disappeared without a trace. But just a few months after his disappearance, Johnny was spotted all the way in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A woman was outside when a little boy started yelling at her for help, but he was quickly dragged off by 2 men. This woman swears up and down that this was Johnny, but police were never able to track him or those 2 men down to confirm. Then, 2 years after Johnny disappeared, more little boys would continue to go missing, and the most disturbing part is that they were also paper boys. One was even a paper boy for the same company that Johnny worked for, the Des Moines Register. So on August 12, 1984, 13-year-old Eugene Martin disappeared while delivering papers for the Des Moines Register on the city's south side. This sparked renewed interest in Johnny's case because of how creepy and similar the 2 cases were. Then, just a year after that, another paperboy mysteriously disappeared. His name was Mark James Warren Allen, and he was also 13 years old when he disappeared in Des Moines, Iowa on March 29, 1986. That day, Mark was not on his paper route, but he was walking just down the street from his own home to a friend's house. He never made it, and just like the other 2 cases, his whereabouts remain unknown. Some sources say that Mark wasn't actually a paperboy, but his brother did confirm that he really was. But like I said, he just wasn't on his route that day. Police have never officially linked these 3 cases together due to lack of evidence, but the similarities are just too creepy to ignore. What's super disturbing though is that when all of these other little boys started going missing, and when police announced that they couldn't officially connect them, Johnny's mom Noreen said otherwise. Noreen said that after Johnny's disappearance, disappearance, she hired a PI because she didn't fully trust the police. And this PI told Noreen that he was actually informed of the Eugene abduction a few months before it actually took place. I guess as this PI dug deeper into Johnny's case, an anonymous tipster told him that another kidnapping would take place on the second weekend in August 1984, and it would be a paperboy just like Johnny, and this paperboy would be taken from the south side of Des Moines. Now, this tipster didn't specifically mention Eugene's name, but this was incredibly alarming. I'm not sure if this information was ever turned into police, but I mean, I can assume that it was, but this was bizarre, and it definitely makes me wonder if these 3 disappearances were actually connected, that maybe a predator in Des Moines was stalking these neighborhoods, specifically targeting paperboys. Like I said, police have never confirmed this, but it all just lines up too perfectly. These 3 disappearances from the same neighborhoods would go on to spark a major movement, which we've all seen before, or at the very least have heard about before. Do you remember in the 80s when missing kids began being featured on milk cartons? Well, Johnny and Eugene's case inspired this movement, and they were some of the first missing kids to ever be featured on a milk carton. Missing children were featured on milk cartons in the 1980s as a public service to raise awareness and seek leads, working as a campaign to find missing kids. This eventually stopped because the campaign had a low recovery rate, and it was rendered obsolete by the creation of the Amber Alert system in 1996. On top of this, I guess these images were really only seen by little kids at the breakfast table, and it instilled a fear that was only proving to be harmful. So as the years went on, Johnny's case would fall cold. His family would receive cruel hoax letters from people saying they know where Johnny is, and if they paid them enough, they would bring him home. One person in particular who did this was a man named Robert Meyer. Robert told the Gosh family that Johnny was taken as part of a large child slavery ring in Mexico City, and the family actually paid him $11,000 because he promised to bring Johnny home. The FBI eventually stepped in and proved that he was lying, and Robert was eventually charged with wire fraud. But the Gosh family, specifically Noreen, believes that he was telling the truth, that Johnny was taken by a predator and sold into a sex trafficking ring. 14 years later, now 1997, something would happen that would thrust this case back into the spotlight. And it gives me chills to even think about this happening, so just be warned. So in 1997, Noreen was woken up at 2:30 in the morning from a knock on her door. At this point, she had divorced Johnny's dad and was living on her own in a new apartment. When she slowly opened the door, standing in front of her was Johnny. According to Noreen, he was now 27 years old, and although his hair was now long and dyed black, she said she recognized her son immediately. Johnny then lifted up his shirt to reveal a birthmark that little Johnny definitely had. He was standing next to an unidentified man, and he didn't speak unless he looked over to this man for approval. But Noreen talked with Johnny for over an hour, and he detailed all of the horrible things that had happened to him since his abduction. He told his mom that once he was kidnapped, he was sold into a sex trafficking ring and endured horrific abuse. He refused to tell Noreen where he was living or where he was going after, but he said that he was cast aside from his kidnappers once he got too old. He then escaped and had been living under a secret identity ever since because going back to his old life was dangerous. Johnny said that he could identify all of his kidnappers, so that made him a target. Therefore, he had to go into hiding. Then after their conversation, Johnny and this unknown man slipped away into the darkness, never to be seen again. Noreen recounted all of this on her website if you want a deeper explanation, but she is 100% certain that this was the real Johnny. So Noreen took all of this information to the FBI, who even created a composite sketch of what Johnny would look like now at 27 years old. Noreen went on to write a book not only about this encounter, but also about her life after losing Johnny. It's called Why Johnny Can't Come Home. Sadly, this case would once again fall cold. That is until 2006. On September 1st, 2006, so now 24 years after Johnny disappeared, Noreen woke up to find unmarked envelopes sitting on her front porch. When she opened them, she found really disturbing photographs of little boys who were bound and gagged. 3 of the little boys in those photos ended up eventually being identified, and it was an unrelated photo that, according to police, was just a prank between the boys and wasn't criminal in nature. Another photo shows what appears to be a deceased man with something tied around his neck, and the last photo shows a still unidentified little boy, around the same age as Johnny when he disappeared. The little boy had his mouth gagged, his His hands and feet were tied, and he had a human brand on his shoulder. Noreen is adamant that this little boy in the photo was Johnny. Authorities have never been able to identify who this little boy actually was, so in all reality, this could really have been Johnny. All I know is that Noreen wasn't the only one to receive these photos. On the same day she awoke to find them, others connected to his case also received them by either email or mail. So even if some of them didn't turn out to be connected, it's still incredibly creepy. What's really horrifying about this case is that nobody knows what really happened to Johnny that day. But one major theory is super prevalent, that he was kidnapped and sold into a sex trafficking ring. And one person that really backs this up is a man named Paul Benacki. So after Johnny's disappearance, 21-year-old Paul came forward and said that he had been abducted and forced into a sex ring when he was a kid. And then he was forced to help kidnap Johnny, who then was forced into that same ring. Now, a lot of people, even the FBI, don't believe this man. He was known to be somewhat of a con artist and just inserted himself way too much into this case. But Noreen, on the other hand, believes him. Noreen actually met with Paul, and according to her, he told her things that he would only have known had he spent time with Johnny. He described scars on his body that had never been released to the public, and he also mentioned a stammer that Johnny had when he was upset, which again was not common information. So this was some pretty damning information, but like I said, the police just don't believe him. I guess his siblings came forward and said that he was never kidnapped, and that he was at home at the time of Johnny's disappearance. So whether or not he was telling the truth, we don't know for sure. He said that Johnny had visited him several times, but he was never able to give police his location. As of today, Johnny has never been found, and although his case remains open, it has long since been frozen cold. But over the years, there have been a few theories as to what could have happened to him. The main theory is that he was kidnapped and was a victim of foul play, but whether that was by a single predator who just randomly saw him and decided to strike, or by a serial killer targeting young boys just like Johnny, Eugene, and Mark, or lastly, if Johnny really was kidnapped by a sexual predator and then forced into a trafficking ring. It's not a question of whether or not he was abducted, it's just by who and why. One thing that really confuses me is if it was really him that came back to visit his mom in 1997. A lot of people don't believe Noreen when she says this happened. Even some of the Gosh family. Some suspect that the visit did actually happen, but that it wasn't the real Johnny, that it was some sick individual pretending to be him. Some people suspect that she could have been dreaming, or maybe just subconsciously made it up over the grief of losing her son. I don't blame her if that's the case, because can you imagine losing your child like this and then just never having any answers? It's devastating. And more than that, Noreen has just never had an easy life. It all started in 1960 when a massive tornado came through and completely destroyed her house in eastern Iowa. At that point in time, Noreen was married to a different man long before Johnny was born, but she did have 2 other kids from that marriage. When the tornado passed, she walked outside and saw her 2 kids laying face down in the gravel and glass. She thought they were dead, but luckily everyone in her family survived. Sadly though, her then husband was battling cancer, and just 2 months after this devastating tornado, he passed away, leaving her a young widow. She eventually remarried to John Gosh and had Johnny in 1969, but just 13 years later, as we know, Johnny would go missing, and his case would go on to become one of the most high-profile child disappearances ever. So when I say that she has not had an easy life, I mean it. Nonetheless, she's never let anything stop her from trying to find her son. Noreen started the Johnny Gosh Foundation, where she would visit schools and teach kids the MOs that sexual predators use. She also advocated for the Johnny Gosh Bill, which mandates an immediate police response to reports of missing children, something that never happened with Johnny's case. This bill was actually passed into law in Iowa in 1984, so she has never stopped searching for her son and trying to make change to ensure that what happened to him never happens again. So here we are, 44 years later, the case still unsolved, and whatever happened to Johnny that morning, and whether or not he is still alive, remains a mystery.
Her boyfriend called her ridiculous, then he heard it too. Hi, I'm Nicole, and this is Haunted Threads After Dark, where I read you creepy, scary, spooky stories. So if you like those, then go ahead and turn the volume up, turn the lights down, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. This is a paranormal story. It's from Reddit, and it is guaranteed to make the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. A Reddit user we'll call Mary moved in to rent a house with her boyfriend and another roommate. And she said from the time she moved in, it just never felt like home. didn't have a cozy vibe, not a safe vibe. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Oftentimes, she would just have this creeped out feeling of being watched and followed around the house. Well, her boyfriend and roommate worked nights, so she was often home alone at night. And on this one particular evening, she was in fact home alone, going through her nighttime routine. She was watching a little TV before bed, and that same sense of dread, being creeped out, came over her. As she was sitting there watching TV, she couldn't make herself look down the bedroom hallway, let alone walk down there. And this persisted for about 2 hours, just feeling particularly on edge about that hallway. But after a while, she was tired and sleepy, and she said, "You know what? This is ridiculous. I'm freaking myself out over nothing, so I'm going to bed." So she walks down the hallway. She leaves the lights on in the hallway, but she goes and shuts herself in her bedroom, gets into bed, flips off the lamp, and tries to go to sleep. And as she's laying there in the dark, all of a sudden she starts hearing a sound. The sound of her side drawer opening and clicking to a stop. She immediately flips on that lamp and looks, and nothing's out of place. She flips the lamp back off, and this continues to happen about 6 more times before she finally says, "Screw it. I'm sleeping with the lights on. See, you know what? I hear that one time, I am out of that house. Not staying there. Not with that going on. That's crazy." So she pulls the covers up over her head, and at this point, she's just waiting for her boyfriend to come home. So around 3 a.m., her boyfriend does come home, and she's like, "Thank God." She tells him everything that's going on, and he makes fun of her. Rude. He's like, "You're being ridiculous. You got yourself freaked out over nothing. It's time to go to sleep." So he flips off the lights and gets into bed, and all hell breaks loose. One by one, the doors in the hallway start slamming shut. Boom, 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 boom. The closet doors in every room of the house start rattling violently, and the sounds from inside these closets sound like utter destruction. Things being ripped off hangers, the poles in the closets being ripped down. It just sounds like chaos. Mary and her boyfriend are literally hiding under the covers together, absolutely terrified. Everything finally went quiet, and it took about 5 or 10 minutes for Mary to convince her boyfriend to go check out the house. They knew it wasn't their roommate because the roommate had actually driven 3 hours to see a friend. So the boyfriend goes and checks out the house, opens the closet doors. Nothing is out of place. Needless to say, Mary's boyfriend became a believer, and they moved out of that house shortly after. See, I would have moved out of that house directly after, like that day, that second. You don't need to tell me twice. So, just a random haunting or what? I mean, why did it all of a sudden just start happening? So, let me know in the comments what y'all think it was. And if you like these stories, please follow me and comment and like this video. And if you have a story that you would like me to share with my channel, then go ahead over to hauntedthreadsafterdark.com and submit the story there. And I would love to give your story a voice. Now, again, if you like these types of stories, go ahead and follow me here and sleep tight if you can. And until tomorrow, have a good night.
Check this out, y'all. Now you got Oscar. And Oscar, your neighborhood Mac buddy. And what I mean by neighborhood Mac buddy, everybody from Chicago know the local clucks and stuff like that. You know, the people that work at your local stores and gas stations, you know, they're not the owner, but they come around and work for the owner, and they clean up and they mop and clean a lot and stuff like that. That's what Oscar do. And he do it at the 76. On 159th and Markham right there on Woods. He do the one on 159th and Dixie Highway. You know, he do the shell right there on Dixie Highway, all that. You know, he clean their lots and stuff, you know, for little money and stuff like that to get by. So on this particular night, Oscar is at the one on 159th and Woods. He in Markham. Now, he cleaning up the parking lot. He throwing stuff away. He getting the lot and stuff together. While he out there cleaning up and taking out the garbages and stuff and getting the lot clean, boom, a car accident happened right there in front of him. Of course, Oscar go over there. He try to run to help. It's a lady and some children in a van. The lady is passed out behind the wheel. It's a guy and like a Benz, and he's passed out behind the wheel. It's a younger guy. So Oscar and other people that were standing around out there trying to get him up, they calling the police and ambulance or whatever to come. Oscar gets the younger guy out of the Benz, trying to stand him up. He noticed the guy is leaking from the head or whatever. But when he stood him up, he looked down and he noticed a gold coin on the seat. Oscar looked around, he grabbed a coin, he threw it in his pocket. Now, Oscar thinking it's one of those, I think they call them Susie B. Anthony's, one of them little gold dollars. He thinking it's like a little dollar or something, a little gold dollar. He just cuffed it, he ain't thinking nothing of it. So the young man blabbing along, leaking from the head, trying to tell Oscar something about some coins and something else. But Oscar, he thinking the guy got a concussion or messed up from the accident. So he like, young man, just cool out, man. The ambulance police coming. Y'all gonna be okay. So finding the ambulance police get there, they didn't have to go far. Ingalls Hospital was right there on Wood Street, so they didn't have to go far. So Oscar go back to his regular night. He cleaning up, mopping, washing dishes, whatever they had to do for him in that store. So at the end of the night, that particular store, they used to give him like a little nacho after he washed the little saucepans and stuff out for the cheese and all that. They'd give him a little nacho and stuff like that, give him about $25. And Oscar get right. But this night it went different. They didn't pay him like that this night. They paid him different. They gave Oscar about $300. Now, this was very unusual for Oscar because he thinking in the back of his mind, like, how much work did I come here and do? Did I go crazy or overwork myself? And then no, they like, no, this is a blessing for you. We appreciate you coming by here, cleaning up, helping us. Oscar had been going there and working for them dudes for a couple years, and he had never heard them say nothing like that. So he like, okay, thank y'all. So now he finna head down to the one on 159th in Dixie Highway because he do this as his routine. Usually he getting like $25, $30 from each spot, and at the end of the night, he go do his thing. But he got this $300. He finna still go make his other little money, right? So he get up to Dixie Highway. The lot was already clean, and there was a guy out there taking out the garbage. So, Oscar go running there hollering at them like, hey, bro, y'all know I do this. Y'all gonna let this dude come just like slide in on my job, bro? So I'm like, no, we don't need you tonight, but here I got something for you. Dude give him $100 and tell him this is a blessing for you. Now, this is the second time that he's been told that this is a blessing for you. Now, this time he like, man, it must be my lucky night. I ain't even did no work. So now he go to the Shell across the street on 159th, right? Now that lot a little dusty, dude tell him go ahead and clean up. Now that one he cleaning up, and that one he do a little more cleaning, cause that Shell right there got a public bathroom, right? So he do the outside first, he get it together, get it all clean, then he go and do, the bathroom. He cleaned the bathroom, get it all good for him. Then he go clean the gambling area for him. Wiped everything down for him, got him all clean and neat, got it smelling good like pine sol. He done mopped. So, he going to saddle up. He like, yeah, that's the end for me. I did this and that. So this time the dude handed him like the little lottery envelopes, the little lottery things. He had a lottery thing. Oscar opened it. Man, it's about $160 in there. So now Oscar like, wait a minute. Now Oscar look up at him, and before Oscar can say anything, the dude say, that's a blessing for you. He say, thank you. I appreciate that. Now Oscar leaving because he confused. He like, man, he like, man, I just made like $560. Like, okay. So, he go do his twist. You know what he went to do, what Mac Buddy and them go do at the end of the night after they done got their little money. He go spend about $100. Go do his thing, pass out. Next day, get up. Now, usually when he do the gas stations, he have a routine that he do. Now, he know the last gas station that he did was the one on 159th and Woods right there in Markham, right? And he did he didn't do the one on 159th and Dixie Highway because they didn't need him, but he got paid. Then he did a Shell. Now, his routine is to come back to Markham, because there should be dirty by now, then Dixie Highway. So what he did was, since he had him a few dollars, he didn't go in. You feel me? He had some money. So Oscar like, man, I'm going to take me a couple days off. I done made some money. So he chilling with his buddy them. They done got them some brews. You know, they sipping and they doing their thing. And, you know, he fronting everything. He done bought him a little pan of chicken from Sharks. You know, they out there eating and because, you know, they in the same category as Oscar. You know what I'm saying? So he looking out for his little homie them that he do his thing with. And, you know, he kept thinking about the blessings that they had given him, the blessings that was given him. He was constantly thinking about them, the blessings, right? So he tell his buddy and I'm like, look, I've been thinking about this. Y'all ever heard of that Wind Creek Casino, the Wind Creek over there in Homewood? I think it's Wind Creek, Wild Creek Casino over there in Homewood. Yeah, the Wind Creek Casino. The Wind Creek. I want to go to the Wind Creek, y'all. That's what he's telling his friends. He said he want to go up to the Wind Creek Casino and see if he can win something now that he got a few dollars. Now, he done been to these places before, but you know, Horseshoe, Majestic, stuff like that. He ain't been to that new Wind Creek. So he told his homie, and I'm like, man, I'm going to go up to that Wind Creek Casino and I'm going to try to win me some money. His homie, and I'm like, all right, cool. So Oscar go home and he decided, I'm going to get clean. He put on whatever he had in there to look halfway decent to go up to the Wind Creek Casino. And he went up to the Wind Creek Casino and man, this dude cleaned up. He cleaned up good, got about 20,000, right? So after he get the $20,000 now, he having a ball because he like, man, he ain't, you know, Oscar about 55 years old, man. He ain't never, you know, like back in his day, he had his thing, but you know, since he been down and out for years and on that stuff and working at gas stations, been a neighborhood clerk, you know, this is a life-changing thing for him. You know, this done turned all the way around for Oscar. So now he thinking about getting himself cleaned up. He don't want to be on that stuff no more. And he was thinking about like, he just took care of his friends, you know, bought them all that stuff. But he like, man, I probably shouldn't be hanging with those type of guys because if they was real at my age, I shouldn't even have to pay for everything. They would have everything. So now Oscar's starting to think like a real person. He like, man, yeah, I ain't messing around with that stuff no more, man.
Share, follow, comment, subscribe for more stories.
So listen to me.
Oscar had started to change and he started to notice a lot of things about himself. He started to notice that he didn't want to be on that stuff no more. He started to notice that he didn't want to hang with the friends that he used to hang with. He didn't want to work for the gas stations. He wanted to have his own money and business. He wanted to be, you know, rich. So Oscar started to go to the casinos and like, he was hitting big. He started to go and make investments, going to banks and starting to take care of business. Like, he was really getting himself together. Oscar was really cleaning himself up. Man, and about that next 90 days, man, Oscar was living good. He had made about $250,000 with his investments and stuff and going to the casinos and winning. He had got him a house. He got him a car. He living good. He even got him a little girl. Now, all this time, Oscar hadn't seen his mother. You know, his mother used to always call him sorry, his sisters and brother and them, because, you know, he's out there on that stuff. And, you know, he had took things from them in the past, you know, trying to, you know, support his habit. So Oscar decided he was going to put a little package together for his family. And he did. You know, he went to his mother's house. He pulled up in front of the house and his nieces and nephews, his sisters, brothers, you know, they all out there. The mother out there. It's hot outside. You know, they ain't got no AC in the house. You know, Oscar get out the car and everybody staring like, who is this dude? He take his glasses off. He got his Rolex on, his ring, and they staring at him. And all of a sudden his mama say, Oscar? He say, yeah, mama, it's me. And he started walking up and his sister was looking at him. She say, who you know when he took that stuff from? He ain't say nothing. He smiled. He walked straight up to his mother and he handed her about $20,000. And his mother looked and she started crying. She said, Oscar, where did you get this from? He said, Mama, I'm a changed man. He said, Mama, I ain't on that stuff no more. I've been clean for about 3 months now. I've been making some smart investments. I won big at the casino and I'm getting my life together. And I just came to give you that to let you know everything that I took from you and done. I'm sorry. Everything I took from y'all, I'm sorry. And I'm going to try to help our family move forward. So his family was happy. They was happy. The brother, the mama, the sister, niece and nephews. He giving them all money and, showing, took them and showed them the house. And, and Oscar, he's still making investments now. Oscar done basically moved his family on over to his house. So his brother and mom and sister and them over there every day and nieces and nephews. They got cars and stuff because Oscar's coming up. Now, all this stuff is happening a year, not even gone. Like, this is all within these months. Like, Oscar almost a millionaire now. He almost a millionaire. One day he riding, coming up 159th. He coming through Markham. He passing 159th in Woods. He see the 76. He pulling there. Now he got his nephews in the car with him. And he telling his nephews how, just months ago, he was cleaning up that gas station for money, and stuff like that, and getting treated any kind of way, trying to get whatever dollar he can to now. He almost had $1 million and their whole family living good. Oscar looked at the door of the gas station and he noticed there was a familiar looking young guy coming up out of there. Now that familiar looking young guy was the guy from the accident that day. And Oscar hopped out. He said, man, I remember you, man. He said, man, you that guy that had that car accident right here in the middle of the street some months ago. And, how you been doing, man? I thought you was gone, man. I couldn't even wake you up. You was passed out. The young guy say, man, I've been doing great. He say, I've been doing great in my life. He say, I'm finna go over here and wait on this bus. I'm finna get out of here. So Oscar like, man, that was a really, really nice car that you had that day. Why you riding the bus now? You ain't have insurance? He say, I had some stuff going on in my life where I thought that, something was saving me. I thought it was saving me and I thought that I would be the best person in the world with this thing. I thought I was going to be the richest, the most powerful person in the world. But I realized something, that when I got rid of that thing, that it was taking over me. I wasn't even myself anymore, And the young boy told him, well, I'm going to miss my bus. I'm going to get on up out of here. And he left. So Oscar thought about it like, that was deep. So, Oscar hopped back in his whip with his nephews. He finished telling them the story. He head back to the house. Now, he go upstairs to his room. He grab that gold coin. That same gold coin that he found that day. Now, Oscar had been wondering about the gold coin the whole time. And he had been keeping it in his room in a little keepsake box because he called it his lucky gold coin because he noticed that everything happening to him started happening when he got that gold coin. So it's like his little lucky charm. So he was sitting there and he was thinking like, how can I make some more money? Now, remember I told you Oscar had a girlfriend. Whole time Oscar had got married and everything to the girl, but he had missed it. It's like he was making so much money and doing so much that time was flying. He was missing stuff that was important to him. Time was flying. Crazy thing about it, the reason I mentioned the wife and all that, because when he was in the room flipping that coin, his wife walked in and she had some divorce papers. And Oscar was like, what are these for? She say, look, Oscar. She said, it's been 5 years. He say, 5 years? He said, it's only been a few months. He say, Oscar, you gone all the time. All you do, everything ain't about money. All you want to do is make money, Oscar. I ain't got time for this. I found me somebody else to sign the papers. He said whatever and walked out the room. He called out for his mama because his mother, stayed in the house with him. He say, mama. He called for the mama and the mama don't come out. So his nephew come out the bathroom like, like, why you calling granny? Like, I'm trying to talk to my mama. Boy, leave me alone. He say, granny died 2 years ago. He said, what? He said, yeah, granny left us 2 years ago, He said, what do you mean? He say, she left for natural causes. Like, she was 80-something years old. He say, man, I was just with my mama yesterday. He say, you probably need to just lay down. He say, you is a workaholic, You been working a lot. So, Oscar went in his room and laid down. And, he got up after a couple hours. He was kind of sad because, the thing with his mother. He went in the bathroom. He went and put his hands under the water, filled his hands up with water, threw it on his face. He got to drying his face out with a towel. He looked at his face. And Oscar noticed, like, his age was, like, really, really, really kicking in. He had aged heavy. And he went to that same nephew he was just talking to, and he looked like he had aged about 4 years overnight. And the nephew was like, what's up, Unc? You ready for the meetings today? You sure you want me to take over? Like, take over what? He said, our company, Unc, the company for our family. We got a Fortune 500 company. Like what? So now Oscar, like, what? I'm not understanding this. He said, Unc, you getting old. I don't know if you catching that, that thing where older people, lose their memory. He say, wait a minute. We got a Fortune 500 company. He say, yes. Oscar's chest started to feel real tight, almost like he couldn't breathe. And he sat down, and his nephew was calling him, can he come on, y'all? Help, somebody help. He was calling out for help for, somebody to come in there and help his uncle. Oscar, he couldn't breathe. I think he was having a heart attack, and he looked over. And when he looked over, there was a little bitty green guy with some yellow eyes and a green hat. And he told Oscar, he said, so did you like it? And Oscar said, like what? He say, the blessing. You had my coin this whole time. It was a blessing for you.
Follow, comment, share for more stories.
Paranormal was one of Mexico's most dangerous paranormal shows, and if you watched this, you already know what I'm talking about. This crew did not play around. They were traveling all over Mexico's most dangerous locations, which involved like cemeteries, hospitals, haciendas. They would even go to haunted like houses, real houses of real people that supposedly encounter like the devil or ghost. You already know. The creepiest part is that the hosts didn't just explore the paranormal, sometimes they even got possessed right there live on TV. You saw shaking, screaming, fainting, eyes going backwards. People said that the reactions were just way too genuine and seemed way too real to be faked. Some of these episodes were actually super disturbing. They seemed real to me. They would capture shadow figures in the background. Sometimes they claimed that something was touching them on their shoulder. They would get answers from like the what's it called? The little box that answers like questions of the spirits. And there was even things that moved by themselves with no one near them. And no matter how bad it got, they would still return like a week later to the same location. Now, let me know in the comments if you remember this show, if you still watch it. It's still out there, I think. Let me know what you think.